We are going to talk about, continue the theme of the conference around secure innovation. And Bianca and the 30 years of work that Knight Aerospace has been doing, they've seen a significant transition and a more focus on security. So without further ado, I'm going to invite Bianca and Val to the stage.
Well, Bianca, happy Friday and welcome back.
Thank you. I'm glad to be back here. Thank you.
Well, we heard your story on Wednesday while you shared about your business and the great mission that you are in. So thank you for all the work you do. And I guess, in this business, especially in a digital world, we always see how we can get the word of cyber and in terms of the leadership out. So as a business leader, and then as connecting the world of technology and cyber, all of this. So we are looking to see where we can use your leadership wisdom and share with our community. So
absolutely.
You can. So I think there are some things that you wanted to share with us and focus. So let's start with how have you seen cybersecurity impact your business over the years? And I'm sure that's a learning journey as well, right? As much as it is.
Yeah, it is. Very honestly, it's affected our business tremendously. We're a defense contractor, and now the standards for how we send information and how we protect our information with the government have increased tremendously. And for a small business, I will tell you honestly, that's been very tough for us because the standards are the same for everybody, regardless of the size of your business. And so, the Boeings and the Lockheeds can very easily comply with those things. But when it comes to somebody our size, we've had to lean in, and get a lot of help. Outside people we've had to bring, and our budget for this, was non-existent 3 years ago.
Wow.
And every year we're just having to spend, a whole lot more money. And I think the other thing that's been very difficult is just every contract, even if it's not direct with the government, even if it's a subcontract with a lot of defense contractors, which we do a lot of, now require just an amazing amount of protection and paperwork.
Sure.
To ensure that we're representing everything. And that's a hard thing when you're a small business, because we do the best that we can. We have an outside IT company because we don't have the resources internally. And so I'm constantly signing things that says, yes, the information is protected, the IP is protected, this and that. And you just pray to God that that's really what's happening out there, because, I sit on two boards of public companies, and we've had all kinds of issues, and they have vast resources. So that's like one of my biggest nightmares is, am I going to find out one of these days that we had an issue that we didn't even know about?
Well, we just got off the stage with Tim, and who had to deal with some issue that we really didn't anticipate. And I think cybersecurity threat adversaries that we talk about are very creative in finding out those. And something we are trying to do from a Cyber Future Foundation side is to shed the light on and spotlight on small businesses. Because what you just said is really true and real, that big companies can afford to have at least some level of protection, but the suppliers to them are going to be exposed. And that's the way big companies, I think that's where the big and small need to work together.
Yeah.
So
well, thank you for that. Thanks. We can use all the help
I cannot tell you
get.
There are people in the room who are probably going to reach out to you for just offering their help and support in any way they can. I'm sure you're working with some folks. But, in this last few years that you have had to address cybersecurity, whether it's a compliance issue or as a requirement to your customer, how have you addressed that? I mean, something can you share with us? Because see, most of us work directly with industry in a reactive way, right? And I think you went through the journey as well. So how did you react to that situation when you had to respond to a request for a compliance or?
Yeah, so, we had to go through NIST, and now we're working on CMMC. I've had to just bring outside people to do that. We've also had several incidences. We've had, hijacked emails and wire transfers and things like that. And unfortunately, like you said, it's very reactionary.
Yeah.
You think that you're doing okay, you think everything's copacetic, and then all of a sudden you find out that your wire transfer got diverted and stuff. So we're band-aiding afterward and putting in processes, so that it doesn't happen again. And so we've, learned through that and said, we've got to get more proactive. So, we're constantly looking for resources and protection on emails and all this kind of stuff. But, we certainly have seen it show up. And you had a speaker a couple of days ago that was talking about some of the statistics. And, they're hitting small businesses. You always think they're hitting the big businesses because that's where the money is. But I think it's super easy to hit small businesses.
Yeah, I think they're getting smart. They're getting smarter where to get to the businesses, big businesses.
Yeah.
I wanted to share with you an approach that we are working on, and like to get your insight is we are trying to make sure that the larger companies invest in the suppliers. Earlier it was different, right? And it's been for the longest time. It's been, well, I'm a big company. I'm asking my suppliers to do X, Y, Z. Now, one thing is to ask that and expect that it will happen. The other thing is to work with them to ensure that happens, right? So anything that we can share with, even your bigger customers and in general, broad industry that as a small business you supply to, what would make it easier for you to be secure? I mean, what resources would be looking for if you were to be a partnership rather than just a customer client journey?
Yeah, so we have certain documents that we ask our suppliers to execute for us that represent that they have some of these things, these protections in place. You hope that the person who's signing this really knows what they're doing. Then we go to the hardware and software side, and we have to protect all of those too. We have engineers in Mexico, so we're transmitting data and a lot of technical data that we're very concerned about. And there's all kinds of protections and things that exist now to enable that. The more, especially after COVID, where all of a sudden you're looking at, and with the labor market that we've had, you're looking at resources outside of the United States. But what that means by necessity is you're transmitting all kinds of information. And so you just feel increasingly vulnerable. So the firewalls, the equipment, hardware and software has all changed. It used to be, you run down to Costco and buy computers or whatever. It doesn't work that way anymore. It's very, very difficult, but we're constantly talking to them about where they are in the process. Because like I said, it flows down, like CMMC requirements flows all the way down. So we have to flow it down to our suppliers, too. And so we're constantly not just asking them to fill out a form and sign it, but describe what you're doing, especially our big suppliers. We're having to, have conversations with them, describe where you are in the process, describe, what you do with our data. And especially as it gets technical and close to our designs, then we get especially nervous about, who we're sharing information, how we're sharing that. It's just become a whole different ballgame.
Sure. And it seems like, just listening to you in the last couple of minutes, looks like this has become a major part of your job, whereas you have to run the whole business.
Right. It didn't even make my radar before, and now it's like, it's a topic in almost all of our leadership meetings. It's a big line item expense that didn't used to exist before, not nearly to this extent. So yeah, it's a big part of the conversation.
So both in terms of the resources, time, and the money that you can allocate to this as a small business, and focusing on the innovation that your core business is versus security, what do you see as roadblocks? What do you see as the ones that are taking away time that could be solved differently?
Wow, I think information sharing is probably the biggest one. So that's why, I appreciate organizations like this that become a clearinghouse for, how do you do this? It's very difficult when you're our size, besides hiring consultants, to understand, what is the navigation? How do we get through this? being able to have those conversations with other companies, I think is probably the biggest issue, because you feel very isolated and it's very intimidating. I mean, this is not our business. We're in the business of designing aircraft solutions. So all of a sudden having to be designing solutions for this, you're dependent on consultants, and they vary significantly. So I think the information sharing, and when you and I first met, I had an issue where I had just bought a bunch of computers, and then I found out from my team that they were not going to be compliant with some of the regulations. And you were fantastic. You went and researched it for me and got me all the information, and we were able to make a good decision based on that. My first reaction was, where do we go to get an answer? Where do we go? Who do I call?
think we as a cybersecurity industry also need to do a better job at reaching out to you, and I think that's the problem that we're trying to solve in this forum. That there is definitely a demand and a thirst for knowledge and resources, recipes and templates that can be available, where you should go, have a credible source of what we just discussed over that incident or that particular event. Maybe there is one resource that we can talk in live stage, and those who are listening in probably, there is the Global Resiliency Federation. They have an ISAC, they're a information sharing and analysis organization. And ISAC and ISAOs are the ones who share information about what's happening. I think that would be a fantastic resource, not only for you, Bianca, but also those that are in this industry as a supplier that can get started. And there, of course, we are also investing in mid-size, focused, purpose-built small business security companies who can support you, because cybersecurity is very expensive. If I wanted to do this in my last job at EY or anywhere else, it would have been a different charge. But I think we did a different economic model for solving small business issues.
Absolutely, that's very helpful. Thank you.
So, how do you see? I think as an entrepreneur, we solving challenges and problems comes with it. What do you see the opportunity, the upside of you getting involved? Someone like you who's already solving a particular business in a core mission, and now you're presented with something that is a roadblock. How do you see that to overcome that? What do you see we should do, and share your knowledge further?
Yeah, besides sharing information, and I think that's probably the primary thing. But I think there needs to be an awareness of how this is affecting industry. And I'll give you a great example. We are in the process of buying some intellectual property from Lockheed. So we're going to license it at first, and then it's moving towards sale. So their criteria of how this information has to be protected, it's a pretty daunting task.
They wanted to be a Lockheed standard cybersecurity,
right?
Being a small business, and then that's like maybe the 30 or 40 years you don't have in business.
Exactly. I mean, we're so small, and as we're talking to them about how are we going to protect this, and then we're going to finish the design on this technology. So then it's not just how we're going to transfer the information that they're transferring, but we're going to have derivative data that comes from there, and then they want to know how that's going to be protected.
Are they doing anything to equip you?
I'm sorry?
Are they doing anything to equip you?
Yeah, Right. So it's this giant topic in this transaction, and then another part of this, we're raising capital to do this because it's a brand new, pretty significant product, and so then they also want to know who the investors are,
of course,
and want to be able to approve that, and want us to represent how we're going to use their data.
Right.
And and comply with, because they don't want to wake up and find out that they have just transferred IP to some Chinese company that's going to come back and show up in their doorstep. So there's just all of these things.
So now
that
you're also restricted to who you can do business with, right? Because they will put restrictions on who's already funded you.
Right. Exactly. So you would not think when you're, buying IP from a company that you're going to have to provide all of this type of information. But now the sensitivity around the world about, especially the protection of intellectual property, is so high that, they're just taking a whole different look at it. The other aspect of my business that, touches this all the time is we're treating patients. So,
Right.
it used to be that HIPAA compliance was like the big thing. Well, we're transmitting, telemedicine solutions and things. So now, HIPAA is like a walk in the park
Yes.
compared to how we're going to send data from aircraft to, hospitals and all of this kind of stuff. So the medical part of, military medicine globally is also a big subject of discussion, especially now when we're moving, COVID patients and everybody is concerned and preparing for another pandemic.
Yeah.
So the discussions are completely different.
Of course.
Again, we're reacting. We
Right.
didn't have any of these conversations before COVID, but now that militaries are recognizing that a virus can be weaponized, then, the movement of patients, the issuance of information, the protection of information, especially as you're moving people around globally, it becomes a whole different topic.
And then that puts you in the intersection of, I think at least three different sectors. You're already in production, within manufacturing, within a defense ecosystem. You are now intersecting to the healthcare, medicine, and then your logistics, right?
Right.
Three of them are if you look at the broader industry, they have different solutions altogether for the three different. And I
Right.
think you are caught up in this eye of storm. Those need one from one provider, and then small.
Yeah.
Well, I think if there is any hope, and there is, I can assure you that we as a industry kind of consortium and think in two tank, we want to make sure that this problem gets solved as quickly as possible. The resources and credible resources are available, but definitely want to make sure your voice is heard, and that is the carrier. We are the carrier of voice, so to
Yes.
speak.
Yeah.
But I think you've given us some really good examples of problems that we're going to solve for, so that you can focus on innovation and running a business.
Yep.
Right. The one last thing I think I want to touch upon, as we have a couple of minutes, is how does your board and advisors, other than the resources and consultants you're pulling in, I mean, that's where you have to really have a big budget. How is your composition of the board? Do you see anyone helping from there, or you need someone who can help as a on the advisory board?
Yeah, interesting. That more affects me on the boards that I sit on, because I tend to be on the audit committee because I have a financial background.
Yes.
And now, that's a big requirement for board participation. So I'm constantly having to educate myself and find people that, can help us to make sure that we're going to be compliant, because that's a big responsibility. One of those boards, I'm the chairman of the audit committee, and so I feel that that fiduciary responsibility pretty intently on their for that matter. With my own company, I have advisors in my company, and I have not. That's really a good idea. I have not tapped into somebody who can advise us that has that kind of acumen. We have not gone there, but that really is a good idea, because, and it reminds me of something else that you mentioned. One of the challenges is the connectivity.
Yeah.
So, you can be an aerospace company and have certain issues. You can be a manufacturer and have certain issues. But when you are, military medicine, you have product in 36 countries, and you're designing your own intellectual property, and you're serving militaries, and you're in medicine, then all of it comes together in a
Right.
whole different way.
Right.
And when you add 1 + 1 + 1, you get like 53.
That is right.
Really hard to manage 53,
Yeah.
because the connectivity is one of the bigger
And I
challenges.
think that could be a challenge, and I think that's an opportunity for you. If you have someone who's connected on the cyber side, at least you have a resource that that is working for you, rather than just you're reactionary to get something. I always share this with not only small businesses, but trust me, large businesses have the same issue.
Yeah.
That in the board we don't really have a lot of cyber knowledge and influence. I think that's where we should start from, because as a leader you
Right.
can make some decisions based on what you're hearing from the top and other companies that you're tapped to. So if we can have any takeaway, I think that is something that I would leave with you.
Yep, terrific.
Well, fantastic, Bianca. I wish we had more time to talk,
Yeah.
but I'm so glad that we heard your story and the business that you're in, and the incredible mission you're serving.
Yeah.
now we know that it lies squarely in the intersection of the three sectors, and being the champion that you are, I'm sure you'll overcome this and be really and a model for other small businesses to follow. So if we can do anything, please give us a shout. There's a huge community here to support you.
Yeah, once again, thank you. Thank you for, the help that you've already given me. And thank you for doing this, because this is critical for companies like mine. This is why I wanted to be involved in this, because there's, so many great, resources out there and people who are so much more knowledgeable than I am. That it's really great, and your purpose is well served.
We are honored to be here. We are in San Antonio for the long term, so thank you so much,
Yep.
Bianca.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Okay.